All right. So have you ever, like, you give someone instructions and then they go off and do the task. And you're like, wait, what just happened?
Yeah.
I thought I was very clear, but clearly something got lost in translation.
Absolutely. So today, very common problem.
Yeah. So today we're going to deep dive into some effective communication and leadership strategies to help you better guide your team members.
That's right.
To success.
Yeah.
And we're going to be using a book called If the Boss Says This, Subordinates Can Definitely Do It.
That's a very long title.
It is a very long title by Yukihiro Yoshida.
Yes.
Now, this book, it's not just some theory. It's based on
real-world experience.
Real-world case studies.
Absolutely.
From over 30,000.
Wow, that's a lot.
Participants in leadership training seminars.
So we know that the content here is very practical.
It is very practical.
Yeah.
So what we're going to do today is try to extract the best insights from this book. So you, the listener, can understand how to better communicate with your team members and really foster their growth.
That's right.
No matter what your expertise is.
Regardless of your background.
Or the specific challenges you're facing.
Yeah.
And so this book, it really starts off by emphasizing the importance of how you speak as a leader.
Right away in the forward, it grabs you with a strong image,
Yeah.
It says a leader's words can be a weapon or a murder weapon.
Wow. That's intense.
Depending on how they're used.
Right. So you could either empower your team.
Exactly.
Or you can destroy their morale.
It has that much impact.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So the book is really highlighting that even a single phrase can make a huge difference.
A single phrase can change everything.
Right. And I think this speaks to something that a lot of leaders experience, which is that disconnect between what you intend to say and then what the subordinate actually hears.
Absolutely.
It's like,
you think you're being clear.
Yeah, you think you're so clear.
But they're hearing something totally different.
And they go off and they do something completely.
Yeah, and you're just left wondering what happened.
Different. Yeah, and you're like, what just happened?
Yeah.
So the book really stresses the importance of, as a leader, taking that step back and trying to think, okay, if I say this, how is that actually going to be received by the other person?
Thinking about the impact of your words before you even say them.
Yes.
It's a really valuable skill.
And the book also digs into some of the challenges that modern leaders face.
Right.
Because it's not always easy being a leader these days.
It's a tough job.
Things are moving so quickly.
Absolutely.
The business world is constantly changing.
So much pressure to get results.
The pressure to get results fast.
Yeah.
You have new hires who are expected to be productive right away.
Right.
And there's also,
It's not like the old days.
Yeah. Things have changed.
Things are more complex.
Right. Like in Japan in 2019, there were some new laws about overtime.
Right.
So leaders have to be even more mindful of their communication.
Yeah, you can't just say whatever you want anymore.
Yeah.
There are rules, and you have to be aware of things like power harassment.
Yeah, you have to be very careful about how you speak.
Yeah.
But in the midst of all of this, the book says that a leader's words can be one of the most important factors in a subordinate's development.
More important even than business skills.
Yeah, more important than their skills.
Or systems.
Yeah, so it's really about the human connection.
Exactly.
So the book then goes into some specific strategies.
Yeah, let's get into the practical stuff.
Yeah, for dealing with different types of subordinates.
Okay.
Starting with subordinates who might be perceived as slow.
Right. The ones who need a little extra guidance.
Yeah, and one of the key things that the book talks about is the importance of focusing on future action.
Okay.
Rather than just past completion.
So it's not just about getting things done.
Yeah.
It's about what you're going to do next.
Yes, and they actually reference a study that was done at the University of Chicago.
Interesting.
Where they had students who were about to take an important exam.
Okay, so high-stakes situation.
High stakes, yeah. And they framed the amount of work that the students had left to do in two different ways.
Oh, that's interesting.
One group, they said, you still have 52% of the material to learn.
Okay.
And the other group, they said, you've already mastered 48%.
So same amount of work, just framed differently.
Exactly. And what they found was that the group who focused on the remaining 52%.
The work that was still ahead of them.
Were more motivated.
Wow. So focusing on what's left to do
Yes.
was more motivating than focusing on what they'd already done.
Exactly. So the book calls this backward-looking thinking versus forward-looking thinking.
Oh, that makes sense.
So backward-looking thinking is all about what's already been accomplished.
Like checking things off your list.
Yeah, and forward-looking thinking is about what still needs to be done.
Okay, so looking ahead.
Yeah, and the book says that forward-looking thinking is much more effective.
Because it keeps you motivated.
Because it keeps you motivated, and it encourages proactive problem solving.
Makes sense.
So instead of just telling someone, okay, just try to finish this task tomorrow.
Right, which can feel vague.
Yeah.
And not very helpful.
The book suggests having them spend the last 5 minutes of their day
Oh, that's an interesting idea.
planning how they're going to tackle the remaining work the next day.
So it's like a mini planning session
Yes.
at the end of the day.
To set yourself up for success the next morning.
I like that.
Yeah. And the book also recommends encouraging your team members to do a brief 5-minute reflection
Okay.
at the end of each day.
It's kind of like a debrief.
Yeah. Where they think about
What went well?
what went well, what didn't go well,
Yeah.
and then what they can do differently the next day.
So it's not a big formal report or anything?
No, it's just a quick personal review.
Okay.
Just to help them, improve their work. The book then talks about prioritizing work.
Okay.
And it says that, a lot of people use those importance and urgency matrices.
Like the Covey quadrant,
Yeah, like the Covey quadrant.
where you have urgent and important.
Yeah.
Not urgent, but important.
Right. But the book says that sometimes that can be problematic
Why is that?
because what a leader considers important and urgent
Uh-huh.
might be different from what the subordinate considers important and urgent.
Yeah, perspectives can differ.
Yeah, so the book suggests using a 4-quadrant system
Oh, okay, different system.
based on results and feasibility.
Results and feasibility.
So results meaning how much impact will this task have?
Okay, so how important is it to the bigger picture?
And then feasibility meaning how easy or difficult is it to actually do this task?
So how likely are you to actually get it done?
Exactly. And the book says that it's really important for leaders to define
Yeah.
very clear criteria for what constitutes high results.
So it's not just up to individual interpretation.
No, you need to be specific. So, is it about generating revenue?
Yeah.
Is it about reducing costs?
Okay.
Is it about improving key performance indicators?
So you're looking at the concrete outcomes.
Yes. And by focusing on results,
Mm-hmm.
you make sure that those important but maybe not urgent tasks
Right, the ones that are easy to put off.
don't get constantly pushed aside.
Yeah, they need to get done eventually.
They do.
Yeah.
Okay, so moving on.
Okay.
The book also talks about how to help subordinates work more efficiently.
That's a big one.
It is a big one.
Everyone wants to be more efficient.
And it's not just about working faster.
No.
It's about starting earlier.
Interesting concept.
It is. And the book talks about how sometimes you have people who are very perfectionistic.
Yeah.
They can get bogged down in details that aren't really essential.
So they spend way too much time on things that don't really matter.
Exactly. And as a leader, you need to be able to help them distinguish between what's truly important
Right.
and what's just busy work.
You need to set priorities and make sure everyone's on the same page.
And the book also talks about Parkinson's law.
Oh, yeah. The one about work expanding to fill the time available.
Yeah. So if you give someone a long deadline,
They'll take the whole time to do it.
they'll take the whole time even if they could do it much faster.
It's human nature, I guess.
It is. So the book suggests setting deadlines not just for the completion of the task,
Uh-huh.
but also for the thinking time.
Okay, so setting a deadline for when you're going to stop thinking about it
Yes.
and start doing
And
it.
start doing it
That's a good idea.
because it forces you to be more focused in your problem solving
And get to work sooner.
and get to work sooner.
Yeah, I like that.
So then the book moves on to reporting
Okay.
and how to make that a more proactive and beneficial process.
So it's not just about checking boxes.
No.
It's about actually using reports to help people.
Yeah, it should be helpful for the subordinate.
Yeah, it should be a tool for them to identify problems early on.
Yeah, and to minimize rework.
Yeah, nobody wants to do things twice.
So instead of just saying, okay, I need this report earlier,
Right.
the book suggests setting interim reporting milestones.
So breaking it down into smaller chunks?
Yeah, so you might say, okay, I need an update after you finish this phase
Mm-hmm.
or by this specific date.
Okay.
And then the book has this really interesting idea
Okay. What is
of
it?
doing a very early check-in,
What do you mean by very early?
like maybe within the first hour of assigning a task.
Wow, that's early.
It is.
So basically, right after you give them the assignment, they
Yes.
come back to you with a rough draft
Yeah, they just give you a quick overview of how they're thinking about it
and their timeline.
and their timeline.
So you can make sure they're on the right track
Exactly.
and prevent any major issues later on.
Yes, and the key here is to make sure that these check-ins are supportive.
Yeah, you don't want it to feel like a rejection meeting.
No, it should be about guidance.
Okay.
And then the last thing in this section on dealing with slow subordinates is about developing their judgment. So, sometimes you have subordinates who are constantly asking for direction.
Oh, yeah, the ones who need their hand held for everything.
Yeah, and the easy thing to do is to just say, use your best judgment.
Use your best judgment.
But that's not very helpful.
It's not helpful.
Especially for someone who's still learning.
Yeah. So instead, the book recommends giving them clear boundaries.
Okay.
And criteria.
So tell them what they can and can't decide.
Yes. So you might say, you can make decisions about this, except for this particular aspect.
Which I need to approve.
Okay. And to encourage them to think for themselves. You can ask them, what are your initial thoughts on this?
Oh, that's a good idea.
Before you give them your own opinion.
So you're getting their input first.
Yes.
Before you tell them what you think.
Exactly. And then you can offer alternative approaches if necessary.
Oh, okay.
But the book says it's important not to criticize their decisions.
Right.
If they've made a decision within the scope of their autonomy. Even if it's not the decision you would have made.
Even if it's not what you would have done.
Yeah, you have to give them space to make their own choices.
Yeah. And then you can give them feedback for next time.
So you can say next time you might want to consider this.
Yeah.
Okay.
Okay. So moving on to a different type of subordinate.
Okay.
The book talks about subordinates who talk but don't act.
Ah, yeah, the all talk, no action type.
And the natural inclination might be to try to change their mindset.
Right. Thinking, if I can just get them to think differently,
yeah,
then they'll start taking action.
But the book says that's not the right approach.
Okay.
They actually tell a story about these high-performing salespeople.
Interesting.
Who were feeling really demotivated.
So they had a bad attitude.
They had a bad attitude.
But they were still making sales.
They were still doing the work.
Interesting.
And the book introduces this concept called labor excitation.
What is that?
Which basically means that the act of starting work can actually trigger positive momentum.
So even if you don't feel like it.
Even if you're not motivated.
Just start working.
Just start working and then the motivation will come.
That's counterintuitive.
It is, but it's true.
Okay.
So the book recommends just encouraging people to take that first small step.
Just get started.
Yeah, just try it.
And see what happens.
See what happens.
Okay.
And then the book talks about subordinates who try really hard.
Okay.
But they don't get results.
The ones who are putting in the effort, but it's just not translating into success.
Yeah, and this can be a tough one.
It is, because you don't want to discourage them.
You don't want to discourage them, but you also need to help them improve.
Right.
So the book says the key here is to focus on just one improvement point at a time.
Don't overwhelm them.
Don't overwhelm them.
With a laundry list of things to fix.
Yeah, because that can be really demotivating.
It can make them feel like they'll never get there.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So instead, just pick one thing.
Okay.
And work on that.
And once they've mastered that.
Then you can move on to something else.
So you're building their confidence.
Yes. And the book says that it's also important to avoid blaming or negating.
Right.
When things go wrong.
So don't focus on the past.
Yeah, don't dwell on the
past. But focus on the future.
Yeah. So instead of saying, why did this happen?
Right.
You can say, what's your plan for next time?
So you're helping them learn from their mistakes and move forward.
And the book also recommends using I messages instead of you messages.
What's the difference?
So an I message would be something like, I think it might be helpful to revise this section.
Okay.
And a you message would be, you need to revise this section.
So the I message is less accusatory.
Yes, it's less confrontational.
Okay.
And it's more collaborative.
It's like you're working together to solve the problem.
Yes.
Okay.
All right, so moving on to another challenge.
Okay.
Procrastination.
Oh, yeah, that's a big one.
It's a classic.
Everyone procrastinates sometimes.
Yeah. And the book has some really interesting insights about procrastination.
Okay, I'm curious to hear this.
So it says that you should focus on the start date.
The start date?
Not just the deadline.
Not just when it's due.
Yeah, because people tend to think,
oh, yeah,
I'll have more time later.
I'll get to it.
I'll be more motivated later.
But that's not always true.
It's usually not true.
Yeah.
So the book says there's no benefit to procrastination.
You're just delaying the inevitable.
So what you should do is encourage your subordinates to set a start deadline.
So when are you going to start working on this?
Yes.
Not just when is it due?
Exactly. And this ties into something called the action declaration effect.
What's that?
Which is the idea that if you publicly state your intention to do something, you're more likely to actually do it.
Oh, interesting. So just saying it out loud?
Yeah, just saying it out loud makes you more accountable.
Okay.
And the book also mentions Henry Ford.
Oh, wow. Bring in some historical figures.
Who famously said that nothing is particularly hard if you divide it into small jobs.
That's true.
So it's all about breaking things down.
Into manageable chunks.
Into smaller tasks.
Yeah, that makes it less overwhelming.
Exactly.
Okay.
And then the last thing in this chapter is about subordinates who say they don't have time.
Oh, yeah. Everyone's busy these days.
Everyone's busy.
Nobody has enough time.
And the book has a very surprising suggestion.
What is it?
Which is to schedule do-nothing time.
Do-nothing time.
Do-nothing time.
I like the sound of that.
It sounds great, right?
Yeah.
So the idea is that, people are so busy, they feel like they have to fill every minute of their day with tasks.
But that's not sustainable.
But it's not sustainable and it's not effective.
No.
So the book says to actually schedule blocks of time.
Like put it on your calendar.
Put it on your calendar.
Do-nothing time.
Do-nothing time.
Okay.
And what this does is it forces you to reevaluate your work methods.
Because you have to make time for that do-nothing time.
Yeah. And it makes you think, okay, what can I eliminate?
Right. What's really essential?
What's really essential?
What can I let go of?
Exactly. And it goes back to Parkinson's law.
Yeah.
That, if you have too much time,
work will expand to fill it.
You're just going to fill it with busy work.
Yeah. So sometimes having less time
can actually make you more productive.
Can force you to be more focused.
Yes.
Okay. I'm starting to see the value in this do-nothing time.
And the book also quotes Peter Drucker.
Oh, another big name.
Who said that knowledge work requires long stretches of uninterrupted time.
So you need those blocks of time to really get into deep work.
Yeah.
Okay.
So to wrap up this deep dive.
Okay, let's summarize.
The key takeaways are that
effective leadership communication is so important.
Effective leadership communication is about understanding your team members. It's about setting clear expectations. And focusing on future action.
And creating a positive and supportive environment.
Yes, where people feel encouraged to grow and learn. So some of the things that really stood out to me.
Yeah, what were your biggest takeaways?
Were the importance of start dates.
Yeah, that was a good one.
The idea of do-nothing time.
That's a new concept for me.
And the fact that, sometimes you have to encourage action. Even before you have a change in mindset.
Just get started.
Just get started and then the mindset will follow.
Interesting.
So for you, the listener,
yeah,
I hope that this has given you some practical ideas that you can implement with your own team.
To improve communication.
To improve communication, to motivate your team members.
Yeah.
And to achieve better results.
And reduce frustration.
And reduce frustration.
For everyone.
So here's a final thought for you.
Okay.
What's one small thing that you can do today?
Just one small change.
To improve your communication with your team.
Yeah.
Maybe it's ending the day by asking them to plan for tomorrow, or maybe it's setting a start date for a task.
Instead of just a deadline.
Instead of just a deadline. Think about how these ideas might apply to your specific situation.
Yeah.
And I encourage you to experiment.
See what works for you.
See what works for you.
Yeah.
Thanks for taking this deep dive with us.
It's been a pleasure.